So
did you
for
do
the
the outline
assignment,
list?
yeah, so it's actually, there's not like a quiz question that we have to do this time. It just says like take 5 to 10 minutes to write a paragraph telling what your group thought was like interesting about about what you learned in that article is what it says for
Sweet.
this time. So that's what it is.
I like it. Well, I had kind of an interesting example because I had a real life example from my the accounting firm that I work at, and our firm has done the school district audits in the area. Like they did all of the school districts. It was kind of, we were like the biggest capacity accounting firm that could even do it, and so just by default, we did it because we were local rather than having to Salt Lake. And so we did their audit for years and years. And so the auditors and the partner got really familiar with the school district board and the account manager at the school district and everything. And one year, all of a sudden, one of the school districts was in the newspaper for embezzlement, like suspected fraud. And of course, we're immediately like, we've audited them and signed financial statements for them for years. And so we're like, they start to go through, and our firm was really nervous about what was going to happen. And then, of course, there was like an internal audit of our firm to see if we were in collusion with them. Mm-hmm. But the firm wasn't ever charged with anything, but we did get fired from doing future audits because of the familiarity, because like there were red flags, and the accountants would kind of mention it like, hey, this kind of leaves you open, but they were friends with them, and so they were, they knew that they would never do anything like that, and they didn't want to hurt their feelings. And so and then it was interesting because they had familiarity and approval both kind of played a role, because you have this long-standing client that we didn't want to make mad by saying, hey, what you're doing is not okay. And then this trust in the client that we knew them so well that of course they wouldn't do anything. And then the other aspect of that, on the other side in the investigation, the account manager at the school district, and fraud started very small and very far apart. Like there was like one incident in this year, and it was for just a little tiny thing, and it was kind of maybe even justifiable. Like you could maybe argue that it was okay or why he did it, like reason that there was some understanding for it. And then it went like a year, and then there was something else that came up, and it was a little bit bigger. And then right before the end, it was like a daily, thing, and it was huge. It was this massive thing. So I was like, every aspect of the bias thing kind of came into play in that example.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just use that example.
Yeah. Did you have one, Isaac?
Because it's perfect. No, nothing like that.
Did you have something, Tyler?
Yeah, the only example I did was like kind of from our work. It's kind of like on a more like smaller level, but what it is we have like clients that call in all the time, and sometimes they like they ask for favors and different things that kind of go that we're not supposed to do for them. But you start to see some of the people who have called in the most and are kind of big in the company, kind of seem to get a lot, treated a lot better and seem to have a lot more favors thrown their way.
It's true. I think it's really prevalent. I even thought of like, as an administrative assistant answering the phone, there were certain clients where it was really easy to be like, no, the partners aren't available, take a message. And, it was really easy to just deal with them as you should or whatever. And then some would call, and it was almost like that they were your favorites, and so you would do a little bit more for them, you know, or try a little harder, or
Yep.
to be a little faster, you know, just because of anyway.
That makes sense. So, if I heard right, we're supposed to write like the things that we liked from the article.
Yeah, it just says this is what it says. It says when you kind of go through your discussion, it says take 5 to 10 minutes to write a paragraph telling what was most important or interesting insight your group gained from the discussion.
Oh, okay.
And there's a couple questions that it has, like can you think of situation outside of auditing where there are lots of opportunities for bias? Is one of the questions. It says, if you're an accounting major, what will you do about what you learned from reading this article? And then, why do you think it's difficult to overcome bias, even when we know about it?
I do think I'm actually in accounting. Are either of you guys in accounting?
Yeah, I'm accounting.
No.
Yeah, it's like a super real thing, because when you're doing tax returns, pretty much every client that walks in the door wants to walk out paying the least amount of taxes possible. Your clients want you to push that envelope a little bit more, and some want to be flagrantly dishonest with their taxes. And it's easy on those occasions to be like, no, go somewhere else. But on the occasions where it is somebody that you've worked with for a long time, and they have a lot of different reasons or justifications, and they just want to, or they may even not be completely honest with you, but it looks like they are overstating some expense or overstating some deduction. And to even ask them is so rude,
Yeah.
because you're questioning their integrity. And so it's really hard. I think you face it a lot in accounting. I think you face it a lot, both in auditing and in tax.
Okay, so as far as like the assignment, do you guys just want to go through like some of the things that we got from the article, or do you guys want to use some of those expressions to the article?
Yeah, really anything. I think just insights from the article are definitely good, and then just like things that you may have learned or thought was interesting about what you learned.
Okay. I'm just going through the article again just to kind of refresh my mind.
Yeah, no problem.
I think probably one of the most interesting things, and you can write it down as we're talking if you want, Tyler, but I felt like one of the most interesting things was how unaware that you can be of bias. I think it's, and how you always feel like you can be unbiased and you assume the other person can't. I thought that was really interesting, of how can you ever overcome bias if you're just 100% blind to it?
Exactly. Yeah, so like the first sentence under the roots of bias reads, psychological research shows that our desires powerfully influence the way we interpret information, even when we're trying to be objective and impartial. So pretty much what you said is like, we're trying to be impartial and objective, but like we're still blinded, and we can still be biased in our decisions.
Yep.
One thing I was kind of thinking too is just like even like everyday things to see how like bias actually plays in, because if you look at it, like even like everyday things, you can be biased against something, or or something like that.
I agree.
Yeah, I was thinking. Oh, go ahead, Sharice.
No, you go ahead, Isaac. You got it.
Oh, okay. I was, Tyler reminded me of a thought I had as I was reading this. Is, for example, so I work with the young man in my ward, and I can see how easily it is to become biased towards some of the young men and have put them over some of the other young men just because of how responsible they are. Like if I can trust them with certain responsibilities. Sorry about that. It's my dog. I'm just going over to the kitchen now. So for example, if they better fulfill their responsibilities, I can see how easy it is for me to just trust them more over than the other young men in the ward, when that really shouldn't be the case. I should be treating all of the young men equally. But it can either happen, my bias can either happen through attachment or familiarity with some of the young men. So it does happen in everyday life.
I was thinking the same thing, and I thought of an example just with how you treat other people. Where I called to get my tires rotated and asked if it was a good time, and she's like, "There's nobody here, come on down." But by the time I got there was this big line, and I was really annoyed, and I was just downright rude to the lady at the counter. Like, there was nothing she did that was wrong, mm-hmm. but I was rude to her just because of my impatience. If I had known her, like if that had been a friend of mine, somebody that I knew, I never would have. And I wasn't like outright mean, but I just was really cold and sharp. Yeah. And I never would have treated her that way. And I've road rage a little bit before, where like does something and you like are mad and you then was I bad?
Sorry, Sheree. So you are breaking up a little bit, so it's sometimes we have to kind of put. Well, I had to kind of put things together. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So sorry if we.
Yeah,
that is better. Yeah, so sorry if we seem like
I could tell my
like we're a little confused.
My thing was frozen. I could tell. Anyway, I've had the experience road rage before, where somebody, almost hits you or something, and my reaction is to be upset. But then when I see that I know them, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah. So maybe you can write something down like that, Tyler, where just like you said, it's something that happens in our everyday lives.
Yeah, I put. We thought it was interesting how bias plays a part in our daily lives, and it's like also right. We thought it was interesting to remember like how familiar you are with a person plays a part in how you treat the person.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that caught my attention is the escalation point, where how like something small, we might hide something small, but then eventually it turns into something huge, kind of like Cherie said. And then that's like when we're really into trouble, right? But at first we kind of let the little things go. Eventually they just get bigger and bigger until we're like really in big trouble and there's nowhere to hide it. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, I'm almost home. I'm just dropping the missionaries home, and then I'll be back. Okay?
All right, no worries.
Are you a meeting or?
What's that?
Are you almost done with the meeting?
Almost, yes.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Okay, because I was with. I'm just dropping them home, and then I'll be back. But I don't know if you are gonna be still here.
You can check. We might be.
Okay, I'll try to be back as soon as I.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome.
Did we gain Cherise again?
Yep,
Yeah.
I think she's
Hi.
back.
Okay.
Something is weird. I'll just have to be quiet.
Anything else that we do we have a paragraph already, Tyler, or should we add a little more?
I've got a couple sentences. This is what I have so far. So as a group, we talked about how unaware we are of, how biased is, like how unaware we are of biased. I need to rewrite that sentence, I guess. But even though we are trying hard to be unbiased, it is little things that can make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says, we also thought it was interesting how bias plays a part in our daily lives. It is important for us to remember how familiar we are with the person, and how it is affecting how we treat the person.
Yeah.
That's what I have right now.
Okay, I think that's pretty good. What else can we add?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I was thinking to put something like the article explained how difficult it is to even recognize bias, especially in yourself. And so I think the main issue with bias is that you can't correct something that you're completely unaware of. And that's what makes bias so dangerous.
Do you guys know if Daniel's in Mexico, or what country is he in?
Yeah, he's in Mexico.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So I put, the article states that bias is dangerous because we fail to recognize it within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to look.
You could put in there about how they're within our group. There are a couple of accountants, that we talked about that we do have a couple of accountants in our group, and how within both tax and audit, it's a place where people naturally want to push the envelope, and so bias becomes very difficult because of the accountant-client relationship. Did you say you already talked about escalating?
Yeah.
I have it in the
in the paragraph, because I thought Isaac's point about escalating were really good.
Okay.
That you could put in there. How and I think escalating applies to so many things, especially when it comes to integrity, when it comes to the commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't.
Yeah.
We don't just go from no drugs to heroin user. It's always.
So you are breaking up a little bit.
Matter of escalation, or we don't go from flirtation to another. Terrible.
Were you able to get that, Tyler?
I didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, Cherise. It was just you keep breaking up. But the last thing that I liked, or that I was able to get, is how you compared it to the commandments, and how it's very similar. How, if we're given certain commandments, and I forgot who said this, but they said, it's better to prevent than to repent. And so, it's preventing those little decisions that we might make that will lead us to, make a bigger mistake, or break that commandment that God gave us. Very similar to escalation, where we just can't let those little details go, because eventually they'll turn into something a lot worse. And, we have to pay the consequences for that big mistake. So maybe you can put something like that, Tyler. Something too. Yeah.
Can you see my chat?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wrote it down so that it would be easier to copy and paste instead of listen to me.
I do see it.
All right. Do we have enough?
Yeah, I think so. That's a pretty good paragraph there.
Awesome. And then next week, is it my turn again to do the prep
So
work?
this was my first week. I think Isaac took 3 weeks of it, so I can do it again next week.
Awesome.
Isaac's the overachiever.
No, I just thought it'd be easier to to just kind of do it that way, and I'm glad it helps. So
yeah, no problem. But yeah,
I loved it.
definitely, I can do it again next week for sure.
Okay.
Awesome, Tyler. Thanks so much.
I was just gonna ask you guys, how'd you guys do on your last exam? Tyler's laughing.
So that's a funny thing. Actually, before you came on, I was telling Sharice I went on and submitted it, but the weird thing is it didn't give me a score. So I was like, what the heck? And I tried to go back and log in and to do it again. It just wasn't working for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And then I checked today, my computer had died last night, so I plugged it in, whatever. Tried to look at it today, and it shows that I didn't submit anything.
What?
So I emailed Brother Chase today, and he just got back to me right before this meeting actually, and said, I was told him kind of the situation and stuff, and he said he was gonna reopen the test for me.
Oh,
and
that's
so
good.
I'm really excited about that. So I'm gonna
awesome.
make sure I get that done.
Well, good luck on that. I got a B-.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad. On the previous 2, I got B's. On the first 2 exams, I got a B for each one, and then this last one I got a B-. So, but yeah, good luck on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna study.
So Isaac, can you hear me?
Yes.
Telling Tyler earlier that I discovered a tip.
Okay.
Can you still hear me, or is it breaking up?
No, I can still hear you.
Okay, so when he does his review, goes through the test line by line. So if you watch the review while you take the test, he will answer every single question for you.
That's an amazing tip.
Yeah, and when I first did it, I watched the review first and then took the test and watched the review. And this time I didn't even watch the review first. I just watched the review for the first time while I took the test. Got every single question right. Every single question he goes through and just slightly changes the scenario.
That is awesome.
It's brilliant.
Oh, wow. That's good. Thank you for that. I'll keep that in mind so I can get an A instead of a B-.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody know when our next group thing is?
I think till the 12th week, the last week, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of the last weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. So, all right, we won't worry about that for a while then. All right, good night, boys.
Thank you, guys.
Hey,
good
thanks.
night.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.